10 fermented foods your grandparents ate that still genuinely nourish your gut today. And every one of them was once alive in a single glass jar of cabbage, bubbling quietly under a cloth on the kitchen counter, long before anyone printed the word probiotic on a bottle. Before we begin, if you love learning how nature quietly nourishes us, take a moment to subscribe. It truly helps. Here is all fermentation really is: friendly bacteria and yeast, eating the sugars in food and turning them into acids. That is why these foods go tangy, why they keep so much longer, and why they sit easier in your stomach. No miracle. Just time and something living. Number 10. Sauerkraut. It starts as nothing more than raw cabbage and a little salt, packed tight in a jar and left to itself. In a week or two, the salt draws out the water and the cabbage begins to sour, and what you are left with is rich in fiber and full of living lactic acid bacteria. A single spoonful beside a warm meal. That is how our grandparents ate it, and it still works today. Number 9. Real brined dill pickles. Now, most pickles on the shelf are just cucumbers soaked in vinegar, and there is nothing living in those. The old way was different. Whole cucumbers brined in salty water, not vinegar, left until the brine turns cloudy and sour on its own. Those carry the same living cultures as the kraut, with a crunch that snaps when you bite it. Number 8. Plain yogurt. Simple milk, warmed and cultured with live bacteria until it thickens into something gently tart. It is a genuine source of calcium and protein, and it carries the very same familiar strains people have been eating for thousands of years. A spoon into a bowl, maybe a little honey, and you have a food older than almost any recipe in your kitchen. Number 7. Kefir. Think of it as yogurt's thinner, wilder cousin. It is milk cultured too, but with an even broader mix of microbes and yeasts, so many that no pill can match the spread. You pour it cold and drink it straight, or blend it into a smoothie in the morning. And you may already have one of these in your fridge right now. 4 foods in, and here is what starts to catch you. A plain jar of cabbage carries this much living life. A cold cup of cultured milk carries even more. So what on earth were our great-grandparents drinking before any of this ever came in a carton? Because there was a drink. Older than the yogurt, older than the kefir, the tangy liquid left behind when butter was churned by hand, slow and warm, in a wooden churn on the porch. It never went to waste. Number 6. Cultured buttermilk. Not the thick stuff in the carton. The real leftover, the cloudy tang that pooled at the bottom of the churn after the butter came together. Mildly sour, easy on the stomach. Wonderful poured into cornbread batter, where it makes the crumbs soft and the whole loaf a little tender. Our great-grandmothers never let it run down the drain. To them it was food, plain and simple. The same living lactic acid bacteria that made the sauerkraut tangy, only now in something you could drink cold from a glass on a hot afternoon. Then it gets savory. Number 5. Miso. Soybeans, fermented slowly with a friendly mold called koji, until they turn into a thick, red-brown paste so deep in flavor it seems to fill your whole mouth. This one carries a small rule with it, so remember it. Stir a spoon of miso into warm water off the heat, never a hard boil, so the living cultures actually survive to reach you. Do that, and you have a bowl of soup that has warmed people for centuries. No shortcut made it. Time did. Time is the real ingredient in every jar on this list. Let me stop you here for 1 second. Tell me in the comments which of these already lives in your fridge, or which one just surprised you. I genuinely read them. And if this quiet, honest kind of health talk is what you have been looking for, take a moment to subscribe and stay with me. It truly helps. Now back to the counter. Number 4, kimchi. Korean cabbage and radish, rubbed through with garlic and chili, then packed tight in a jar and left to ferment into something bright, spicy, and fully alive. You get fiber from the vegetables and lactic acid bacteria from the ferment. The same patient little workers you have met all through this list, only wearing a much louder jacket. A forkful beside a bowl of rice, and your whole plate wakes up. Tangy, hot, and good for the gut in the same modest, real way the milder ferments are. Number 3, kombucha. Sweet tea fermented into a lightly fizzy, tart drink with a pale, cloudy disc floating on top that does the quiet work. And here I want to be honest with you, because this is where the hype creeps in. You will hear kombucha called a detox. It is not a detox. It does not flush you out or scrub you clean. What it really is a pleasant, living, fermented tea, refreshing, mildly sour, carrying a little of that same friendly bacteria, and honestly, that is plenty. That is enough to be worth pouring. So, 10 down to 2. And I have to tell you, the next one is the very food people most want to turn into a miracle. A ruby red tonic that old folk kitchens have poured for generations, ladled out for anyone who felt run down. Some still call it medicine. Some go further than that. And I am not going to let that slide past without stopping. Because you deserve the truth about it, the wonder and the honest limits both. So let us be honest about that one, right here, before we ever get to number 1. So here it is. Number 2, beet kvass. Deep ruby beets, chopped and dropped into a jar of salted water, left to sit until the water turns the color of garnet and tastes faintly sour and earthy. That is all it is. Beets fermented in salted water, poured in traditional kitchens for generations, sipped by the small glass as an everyday tonic. It carries the same living bacteria, a little natural salt, and the plant compounds that give beets their color. An old, mineral-rich drink that people have loved for a very long time. And yes, this is the one you will hear called a cure. Some still call it God's medicine. So let me be honest with you, because honesty is the whole reason you are still here. It is not medicine. None of these foods are. Beet kvass will not fix your blood pressure. Sauerkraut will not cure a single disease, and no jar on your counter replaces a doctor. If something is truly wrong, please see your doctor. These foods are the good, daily habits, not the cure. What they really are is affordable, living, gut-friendly staples that support a healthy body. That is a smaller promise, but it is a true one, and true is worth more than a miracle. Which brings us, finally, to number 1. Of everything on this list, the oldest and humblest one of all is bread. Real sourdough bread. Not the soft, pale loaf from the factory shelf. Real sourdough is just 3 things: flour, water, and time. You stir flour and water together, you leave it on the counter, and within days, wild yeast and bacteria from the air move in and start to bubble. That living culture is called a starter, and people have kept the same one alive for years, feeding it a little flour and water like a small pet. Here is why it matters for your gut. Those wild yeast and bacteria pre-digest the grain. They break down parts of the flour before you ever eat it, which is why real sourdough is tangier, keeps longer, and sits easier on the stomach than fast factory bread. The same friendly work that turned cabbage sour turned a lump of dough into a loaf with a crackled dark crust and a soft, holy inside. Tear off a warm piece. That tang you taste is the fermentation itself, and that is the quiet secret of this whole list. Go back to where we started. One glass jar on a kitchen counter, a cloth draped over its mouth, something bubbling gently inside. The sauerkraut, the pickles, the yogurt, the kefir, the buttermilk, the miso, the kimchi, the kombucha, the kvass, and now this loaf. Every single one is the same idea, told 10 different ways. Salt, or milk, or flour, friendly bacteria, and patience. Time is the real ingredient. Nothing on this list needs fancy equipment, an expensive powder, or a word that was only printed on a bottle recently. It needs a jar and a little waiting. Our grandparents knew this without a single label. They kept their guts strong the simple way, and the same tangy living foods that nourished them are still here, still working, still gentle, still real. Nature and time have fed us this way far longer than any pill ever could. There is a quiet kind of wonder in that. And if you take one thing from all 10, let it be this. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your gut is keep a jar on the counter and wait.